So, how you doing?
I'm fine,
All
considering the late hours.
Yeah, you mentioned that earlier. You had a bit of a drive-in.
No, actually, I flew in from, I was in Louisville and came in yesterday, and then right over here to the convention until 11 o'clock last night, so it was a long, long day.
Now, are you from Kentucky?
No, actually, I'm from Los Angeles, but I have a home in Kentucky.
I was wondering because I noticed something, the way you pronounce the city. I have a good friend of mine, he's moved off there, and he's tried to get me to say Louisville right, and I don't, apparently.
Well, they pronounce it Louisville.
Yeah, it's he told me it's like Louisville. And I'm like, okay, Louisville. He's like, no, that's not right. And I'm like, I said the exact thing you did.
Right.
But there's some magic to it that you have to be from there.
There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, it's like we have a city here in Oklahoma. It's Miami. You would think that's Miami, but no, it's Miami.
Miami. Okay.
Miami, Oklahoma.
Well, strangely enough, there are people in Miami, Florida that pronounce it Miami.
Well, they can call this one Miami then, just to keep it straight.
Sure.
So you did Dark Night of the Scarecrow.
I did.
And that was on what channel? It was a TV movie.
That was originally made for CBS. Mm-hmm. It ran on CBS in 1981 in October as their Halloween movie.
I was getting ready to turn
and then it was repeated the next year for the Halloween movie also.
Okay.
It was picked up by Turner after the CBS license ran out, and they ran it for either 6 or 7 years after that. So it was around quite a while.
Right. And I think there was some sort of a problem. It sort of disappeared for a small, brief period of time.
It did. The distributor that had it at the time out in Los Angeles was a major distributor, and after they had syndicated it, which at that time was where most of their income came from, was television syndication.
Right.
They had syndicated it all over the world and pretty well run it dry. And they just were not interested in putting it out on DVD. They figured that there was no demand for it.
Now, did it get a release on VHS at least?
It did have a release on VHS right after it came out.
Okay.
CBS, Fox put it out on Key Video.
Okay.
And it sold out almost immediately. And then they subcontracted it out to, I think the company was called Sterling. I'm not sure. And they put it out for quite a while, and then that was the end of it. So it hasn't really been out for a long time.
Yeah, and then
for the home market.
So now you're with VCI getting to put it out.
VCI has it out now. It's available online everywhere. You know, go to your favorite online DVD shop, and there it is, including Amazon and all the rest of them. And
if you're watching this, we prefer you to go to Amazon via the link on fearcast.net.
Well, Amazon has them in stock, and they turn them around. They can send them to you almost immediately.
Not that we're money grubbing, but we do get a kick on that. So yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I've noticed VCI does have a lot of respect for some movies that, kind of like we were discussing, it's these things that need a bit more spotlight. It's like they were forgotten.
Right.
They were just kind of left on a shelf somewhere.
Well, they had told me that there was a tremendous a demand out there, that people were asking for it and have been asking for it for years. And I've started noticing on the comments that were coming in to the different blogs that that had bought it on VHS, their VHSs were getting bad.
Oh, yeah.
And getting lines and breaking, and they were running out of formats. And of course the pirates had it, but unfortunately people that bought the pirated versions were disappointed because those were only down converts from the VHS.
Right. So if you just have to see it, that's one thing.
That's right.
And one of our things, working with, like, in the anime industry, sometimes we'll get pirated versions of anime that hasn't even hit America yet.
Yeah.
And the general compromise is it's okay to pirate something until you can get it legally. And then once you can, you better put your money down because you've been using it this whole time anyway.
Right.
And that's what we do. Right. And so, I didn't, but I would have pirated it then, immediately bought it from VCI, which I have since then, by the way.
Right. Well, it is available, and we went to extreme lengths to do not only retransfer it, but to do a complete restoration frame by frame. There was a lot of money spent on it, and it was done by the best company in the world out in Los Angeles that does that sort of thing.
Right.
And I supervised it from beginning to end.
So you made sure everything
Was perfect. We did a remix, we did audio enhancement, and everything that was necessary to bring it up to current standards. There's also a 5.1 remix on it.
Really?
So even with a standard def, if you have a 5.1 system, it's really pretty remarkable. But the 5.1 is not one of these where you have stuff flying across the room and going crazy with it. It really it's a very reasonable 5.1.
More like the old stereophonic recordings.
Yes, but you've got the back channels
Exactly.
really good too. For example, when you're out in a field at night or something, and you have all those weird cicadas, you're really sitting in the middle of them now.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's an interesting thing, and sometimes I think they try too hard. When you take something that was recorded in like 2 channels, and it's like, yeah, we're going to make a 5.1 version, and they hard pan things, and it's just really weird sounding. And I think the better thing to do, it was recorded in 2 channels with the stereophonic thing, just spread it out. Make it so that you're in the middle of this, and you've just got a really rich audioscape, and that sounds like what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Is
Well, we were fortunate when the movie was mixed, the original mix. We pulled what's called DM&E, which is dialogue, music, and effects separated track.
Really?
Oh yeah, and we had that available, so we could
That's
we could
brilliant.
actually do.
You
a
could have, like-
it is a real 5.1.
That's amazing. Okay, I didn't realize that you had it. Okay, I don't know, for those of you who don't know, at the time, those were only pulled usually if somebody thought that they might need it and were forward thinking. So a lot of old movies don't have that. You have just the mix down is all you have. So good job. Way to think about the future, right?
Well, you see, the thing is, on maybe a future disc that we put out, we can actually isolate the music track, because a lot of people like the score from that movie.
Yeah, and I bet there's not been a recording of it.
So we
other
know
than the movie.
it's the only one that exists is on that on the movie itself, and we can go back and give the disc, the DVD that comes out, an isolated movie track, so music track rather, so you can sit there and just listen to the score.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Just have that on as a DVD extra or something.
Absolutely.
Well, I'll tell you, you were mentioning earlier that you had a lot of demand for getting Dark Knight back.
Yeah.
When I spoke with the guys at VCI, this was before you had actually officially released anything on it, and somebody's trying to come in the room, and they were scowled away. Good job. Yeah, but no. While we were talking about maybe covering this, and they wouldn't tell me what the movie was because he couldn't yet. And I said, dude, you're making this out as if you found an original print of London After Midnight, man. I mean, what movie is this? And I knew it wasn't that.
Yeah.
But then he told me, I'm like, oh, where did you find it?
Yeah.
Because, it's gone.
Right.
It really is. And I was wondering, it came out in 81. You're kind of right on the transition. Did it ever make Betamax?
No, it was never on Betamax. It went right to
Just to
VHS. Yeah.
Again, forward thinking. You knew which ones weren't going to work out.
Right. Well, I think even then, at that time, Betamax was pretty much disappearing.
It was. There was a few things up through about 83 or 84,
Yeah.
I think. Somebody, please, I'm pulling this out of the air. Don't email me and tell me how wrong I am. I'll look it up later. But, it was around that time that they switched that. Now, speaking of switching formats again, is there any thoughts about maybe doing a Blu-ray?
We have talked about a Blu-ray, and again, Clyde, you'll appreciate that forward thinking.
Yes.
Because the restoration was done in 1080p.
I love that.
With all the state of the art that we could put into it.
Very good.
So the reason there's not a Blu-ray right now is that in order to get this out for Halloween, which what we wanted to do, we couldn't get both of them.
Exactly.
And more people still have standard def.
We're still
had to get the
transitioning.
standard def out. And the Blu-ray takes considerably more time and attention
Yeah.
to get out. We will someday have that out, And what the discussion has been, next year is the 30th anniversary of Dark Night of the Scarecrow's original broadcast.
That would be a
And
good
we're
time.
thinking of having the Blu-ray as the 30th anniversary special issue with some additional bonus material on it.
Maybe some more professional interviews with you than what we're doing.
Right, exactly.
That'd be fantastic.
Exactly.
You have a lot to say about that. We were talking before we started filming about some of the other things you've done. There was a couple episodes of Twilight Zone.
A couple of episodes of Twilight Zone. One was a Ray Bradbury story that I adapted and directed called The Burning Man.
Okay.
And there was an original piece, an Irish piece called The Little People of Killaney Woods. And this was the Twilight Zone that came out in the mid-'80s, and it is available on DVD through Image Entertainment. I think they have all the Twilight Zones.
We'll look for a link on that one.
Yeah.
And then there was also Wes Craven's.
After Scarecrow, it did extremely well for CBS, and for a while I became their spooky movie guy.
Right.
And I developed another horror movie called Chiller.
Right.
And I was a producer on that as well as the writer, and brought Wes Craven on board for directing it. So
nice.
He did a terrific job on it. Of course, Wes is a great horror
Yeah.
director. And it's still out there, it's around. On that one I had, no involvement in the DVD or any subsequent showing of it. So, to find it, you have to go look for it. But I know it had several incarnations on DVD.
With a name like Wes Craven attached, I think.
Yeah, well, they call it, originally it was just called Chiller, and then it became Wes Craven's Chiller, to get the advantage of his name on it.
Exactly. One last question for you is, we've mentioned, you're the spooky movie guy. We've had several.
Right.
Have you done some non-spooky movies?
It's funny. I may be cutting my own throat here, but my original first love was historical drama.
Hey, that's all right. That's cool.
As a kid, I was raised on the great big Roman epics,
Okay.
Quo Vadis and The Robe and Fall of the Roman Empire and all of those things.
Oh, my dad would love to talk to you about all
I
that.
love those movies, but of course, that was way out of my range to be able to even approach those. But I did a shorter film, a Civil War movie. Civil War was something that was interesting to me.
Right.
Based on an Ambrose Bierce short story. Bierce was a writer back at right before and after the turn of the century. Wrote some very strange, bizarre stories.
Well, he did the Devil's Dictionary also.
Yes, he did. And the very first war story he wrote was called One of the Missing. And it's a very, very spooky story about a sniper in a building that gets bombed, and when he wakes up, his own primed rifle is protruding out of the debris, pointing right between his eyes, and he's pinned down and can't move. And the slightest movement will set this hair-triggered thing off.
Right.
And it goes from there. That's
Oh,
also
wow.
available from VCI.
So that's the missing.
One of the Missing.
One of the missing.
Right.
We'll put a link on VCI.
The big historical drama that I did was for CBS in 1986 to commemorate the culmination of the Texas sesquicentennial.
Mm-hmm.
We did a movie. It was for television. It was called Houston: The Legend of Texas.
Okay.
And as it came out on DVD and all other formats, it was called Gone to Texas. It was the whole Texas Revolution seen through the eyes of Sam Houston. Starred Sam Elliott with Catherine Ross and G.D. Spradlin.
You had me at Sam Elliott right there.
Yeah, yeah. And it's been out quite a few times and is out currently. But it's now called Gone to Texas.
Okay.
And that was a big movie. That was like probably a $15 million big epic thing, all shot in Texas.
Excellent.
And those were the two historical dramas that I was involved with.
Well, JD, thank you for taking a few minutes to
Well,
talk to us.
It's my pleasure, and to all the fans too.